Mars back. Did you see the video?
Was it the one with the fake news?
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen it already.
You
Okay.
want y'all let me know if y'all want me to play it again. Matter of fact, I'll play it again. Y'all check it out. Hold on.
So in 2013, it was legalized in the United States to propagandize its citizens. What? Like, that's some scary third world stuff going on. That's the kind of stuff that people use to topple governments, to take away freedoms.
Yes, you heard that right. Almost a decade ago, propaganda was legalized in the United States with the passage of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which you've probably never heard of. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was buried in the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act for a good reason, because it repealed the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which authorized the State Department and the mainstream media to engage in propagandizing foreign countries, but it prohibited releasing that same propaganda in America for public consumption. This prohibition was lifted when the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act was signed into law by Obama.
Very simply, Obama gave it a reboot in 2012. So, no matter how outrageous the propaganda may be, it's completely legal.
Propaganda, in other words, a false narrative for whatever specific purpose, is now much, much easier to perpetrate on the people.
Due to the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which went into effect on July the 2nd of 2013, scripted and orchestrated propaganda can now be presented to the American public as factual news.
Y'all can't tell me that's wild. That's your man's Obama, Chicago's very own. Sign that into, and I think I don't know. What do you feel when you hear something like that?
Okay, so remember what I was saying before? Oh, I didn't even realize y'all could see my bed. Oh, shows you I didn't make my bed this morning. But I feel like we've always, who's ever trusted the news, right? Like, I feel like since it was something like my grandparents used to watch like religiously, like all day after them game shows and the other shows went off, like the news was just what they watched. And, obviously you believe like the local aspect part of the news, but like all those big things, you're kind of like, oh no, the government's always been lying to us. And my uncle has always been one of the people like, y'all think you think you getting the truth and blah 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 blah. They ain't telling y'all the truth, or he always thought it was like actually worse than what it really was. And you can't trust the food, you can't trust the news, you can't trust. So I kind of grew up with that like thought process. And then obviously, as I've gotten older now with like COVID, all the different stories, and if you're into YouTube documentaries, then they're like, oh, this is not true, this is what this actually is. And so I think that I've always had this distrust anyway on a larger scale when it comes to the news that it's not shocking.
Yeah. I didn't grow up with the distrust. And I can tell like your uncle, yeah, that was definitely like a privilege to have him around, because when you can get a different perspective, seriously, because if you grow up and you don't have somebody who's in your family and what happens with that person? They're kind of known. Oh, they always talking about some conspiracy
they
stuff.
Crazy.
You know what I mean? I got a cousin the same way. As soon as you link up with him, he like, yo, what you think about this? Like, you know what I mean? And it just comes across in a way to where I'll really be listening in, but like my dad not hearing that. You know what I'm saying? Like especially depending on the generation. If you grow up just literally believing and trusting in the news, because people want to believe what they're hearing. People don't want to have to decipher between what's real and what's not. People want to hear certain stuff. And that's why we fall in love with certain news stations, because we don't necessarily want to hear all different sides and get all different perspectives. We just want to be able to listen to something that aligns with what we believe, what's comfortable for us. And then that kind of allows us to kind of just fall back and just, rely on the news rather than to question things. Because when you question things, then there's an obligation and responsibility to say, oh, I have to now do my own research. I have to now think for myself rather than just turning into the news and them giving me my perspective, them giving me exactly how I should feel about it, just based on the team that I'm on. You know what I mean? So that's to me why it's so dangerous.
Yeah, I know that the violence here in Chicago is big, right? It's a thing. Everybody knows that. But I promise you, there was one holiday weekend, they were like, oh, all these people died. It was like 40 some people shot and 70 people injured. Like, it was just something crazy.
Last week?
And
last week?
No, it was a different time, but
Uh,
it was a different time where it was just like, every weekend it was like, oh, all these people died or something happened in Chicago. And they said in this one particular area, which is like Inglewood or whatever, which is, like not too far. So anyway, so me and my homegirl, now mind you, this might have not been the smartest thing, but she had, what do you call them cars with the top down? Convertible. Yeah. So she had a convertible. It's like 3 a.m. We are riding through like the trenches. Now, not on purpose. You know what I'm saying? We just was rolling around the trenches. All I saw was police cars. You don't see, and again, I don't know, maybe it's just different here. There's not like hella people hanging around outside. You don't see people all on street corners in front of store, at least on the south side from where I am. Like you just don't see it as much. Because I always say this, when you're in Jersey, you might be in a rough neighborhood versus then like over here, you can't really tell sometimes. But and I was like, well, if all these people died, you would think, or I would assume that you would just see like hella people outside, people running around, people, you would hear it, just the way that the news was like making it seem like all these people died in Chicago, don't go to Chicago, da, 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 da. And I'm like, is this even true? And then I saw, I'm like, well, maybe it's the cops just out here shooting everybody, because I was just like, I saw nothing but just cop cars roaming the city. Like there was no people riding around. It was so quiet. And then when you look at the top 15 dangerous cities of the world, Chicago wasn't even on one of them. But based off of the news, I feel like you hear Chicago every day. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, I mean, I definitely believe that the violence here is real. I do know that. But just when it comes to the news versus actually being here or actually seeing, and it's like different. But then again, I don't know, because I'm not in certain neighborhoods. I'm not in certain places to where like maybe I would understand how it works here. But that was
I mean, I guess if it can be propagandized on one side, then anybody can use it. Just depends on the agenda that they're pushing, and that's what makes it so scary. You literally cannot believe anything just based on if they are literally, and let me go back to the definition. So the definition of propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Like literally they're saying it's okay for me to lie to you if it's in the best interest or aligns with my particular political view, my agenda. Now, taking that, think about what we've experienced over the last couple of years, where everybody was jumping in. Like think about 2020, where we had that big thing happen, and everybody, you had a lot of people, not believing, what the government was saying. You had a lot of people not believing what a lot of these doctors were saying, pushing all this stuff, as telling you need this jab, you need this. And a lot of people were saying like, nah, I'm not doing that. I don't trust it. And those were the people getting ambushed. Like literally, if you came out, you had almost as if like they'll insult your intelligence. Like, why would you not get this like that? And then you got the other side who's just arguing. So all of the information, we literally have no idea. That's what we have to do. That's why we have to figure out, put it in our own, put the onus and responsibility on us to get the information. Whether that, and that's the same thing that even when it spills over to the education standpoint, with relying on, when they talk about like the critical race theory, all these different things, why would we want people to teach us certain stuff that don't want to? Or, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like giving the same feeling. I don't want anybody teaching me something if they have a particular agenda or if they don't want to teach me something. And this whole propaganda thing is scary. It's really scary because most people are sheep. Most people would rather just listen to what somebody tells them rather than actually go out and do the work and try to learn for themselves. And it's just kind of a sad place.
Yeah, it's scary because honestly, the world just seems like it's just crumbling. Like it's just like, oh my God. And then that's where you like somebody like me is like, okay, well, again, because I get nervous, I'm nervous Nancy. So especially during COVID, during that time, I don't know if we could say that, but yeah, during that time, oh my God, it was terrifying. You know what I mean? Like it was terrifying. And I get it, a lot of lives were lost, but it was just like, I couldn't watch the news at that time because if I did, I would literally like, I'm about to lock myself in a closet and stay there until this all blows over. Sorry. Maybe the violence is real.
Nah, that sounds like a fire truck. They just going. They just saying Grand Rising, good people. That's all that means.
But yeah, I totally understand, and I think that doing the work can also be scary too, because then you find out like what's truth, and then you're like, because if it's bad, in a way, especially when it comes to like all this food and all these different things, and what they're feeding us and all that other stuff, like it really will scare you. But maybe it'll scare you into putting some action into how you can really protect your family better. It's like going to the doctor. If you know what's wrong, you know how to, move forward. You get some blood work done, you know how to do what you need to do. So I think that it's just one of those things about preparing yourself to take care of yourself. You do have to do the work when it comes to certain information. But I am one of those people that like am terrified to find out the truth sometimes. So I can understand that too.
My next question was going to be, do you think that we could rely on people to actually do the work, to be free thinkers? Because at